The shell bursts with a sharp crack, and the world turns white hot. Burning smoke pours into a German cellar in Aachen, clinging to uniforms, eating through wood, searing lungs. Men scream, claw at their eyes, and stumble up the stairs, straight into the waiting fire of American rifles and bars on the street above. This is the moment German soldiers learn to dread one thing above all else in the Second World War: the American white phosphorus shell. They call it Willie Pete. To them, it's simply hell in a can. It's October 1944, and the U.S. Army is fighting on German soil for the first time. The boys who landed on Omaha and Utah are now kicking in doors in ancient cities, block by block, house by house. And whenever the advance stalls against a stubborn strongpoint, the call goes out the same way: give us Willie Pete. Because in the tight, rubble-filled streets of Europe's dying cities, white phosphorus does something nothing else can. It forces the enemy out of cover and into the open, where American firepower finishes the job. White phosphorus is a nasty piece of work. It's a waxy chemical that catches fire the instant it hits air and burns at 5,000 degrees. Load it into a 105 mm howitzer shell, a 4.2-inch chemical mortar round, or even a Sherman tank's 75 mm gun, and when it bursts, it scatters hundreds of glowing wedges that stick to anything they touch: walls, furniture, clothes, skin. The smoke is thick, choking, and it finds every crack, every vent, every mouse hole. You can't outrun it, you can't hide from it, and in a city fight, there's nowhere left to go. The Germans hate it for the simplest reason in the world: it takes away their biggest advantage: cover. A concrete bunker or a thick stone house can shrug off high-explosive shells all day, but not Willie Pete. The smoke rolls in, the fires start, and suddenly that safe fortress becomes a crematorium. Stay inside and burn or choke. Run outside and get cut down. Those are the choices. The first time the Germans really feel it is Brest, August 1944. 38,000 of their paratroopers and sailors turn the old French port into a fortress. The U.S. 2nd, 8th, and 29th Divisions surround it, but every street costs blood. Then the chemical mortar battalions roll up their big 4.2-inch tubes. The first WP rounds go in, and entire blocks start coughing up Germans, hands up, eyes streaming, uniforms smoldering. One captured Fallschirmjäger sergeant tells the interrogator, voice still hoarse, "We thought you were using gas again. That white smoke, it burns the lungs. We couldn't stay below ground. Your machine guns were waiting." Across the line, American soldiers start to trust the stuff the way a carpenter trusts his favorite hammer. Private First Class Leonard Lommel, the same ranger who silenced the guns at Point du Hoc on D-Day, writes home after one fight in Brest: "We ran into a house full of krauts who wouldn't come out. Called in the 4-deuce mortars with Willie Pete. Whole place filled with smoke in seconds. They came piling out the front door like somebody kicked an anthill. Took 40 prisoners and never fired a shot." By the time the U.S. Army reaches Aachen in October, Willie Pete has become the standard answer to any tough nut. Aachen is the first real German city in the crosshairs, Charlemagne's old capital, and Hitler orders it held to the last man. 5,000 troops of the 246th Volksgrenadier Division dig in among the medieval streets and modern apartments. The 1st Infantry Division, the big red one, has the job of taking it. The fighting is pure murder. Snipers in church steeples, machine guns in cellars, Panzerfausts from every window. The Americans coin a new phrase: knock 'em all down. Instead of bleeding for every building, they bring up the tanks and guns and simply make the buildings unlivable. Sherman crews load WP, fire at point-blank range into upper floors, and watch the white clouds billow out. Infantry follows behind with rifles ready. Captain Bobby Brown from the 18th Infantry earns the Medal of Honor in Aachen doing exactly that, charging 3 separate pillboxes with WP grenades, smoke pouring out as the crews stumble into captivity. His letter home to his wife in Georgia is short and tired: "Honey, the phosphorus is saving a lot of our boys. It's ugly work, but it's working. Kiss the baby for me." German prisoners tell the same story over and over. One lieutenant, hands still shaking, says, "Your white shells set whole blocks on fire. We couldn't fight from the houses anymore. The smoke came through the floors, the ceilings, everywhere. We hated it more than the heavy bombs. In November it's Metz, the fortress city on the Moselle. Patton wants it bad, and the forts around it are monsters. Thick concrete, deep tunnels, guns that can hit anything for miles. The 5th and 95th Infantry Divisions go in with the chemical mortar boys right behind them. Fort Driant, Fort Jeanne d'Arc, one after another, get the Willie Pete treatment. Rounds burst over the ventilation shafts, smoke pours down into the corridors, fires start in the ammunition rooms. Germans come up coughing, waving white rags. A captured private from the 462nd Volksgrenadiers puts it plain. We feared the American Phosphorus more than the artillery. It found us no matter how deep we dug. Everywhere the story repeats. Saarbrücken, Mannheim, Cologne. Anytime the U.S. Army hits a built-up area, the call goes out for WP. Tankers love it because one round can blind an entire street of anti-tank gunners. Infantry love it because it lets them cross open ground under their own smoke and then watch the enemy come running out the far side. Artillerymen love it because it's accurate, terrifying, and gets the job done fast. And the letters keep coming home. A kid from Iowa writes his dad, "We took a whole factory today with just 2 mortar rounds of Willie Pete. Smoke went in, krauts came out, nobody on our side even got scratched." A sergeant from Brooklyn tells his little brother, "You see that white cloud coming, you know the next thing you'll see is Germans with their hands up." Works every time. The Germans never find an answer. Wet blankets over the face don't help much. Digging deeper just traps the smoke with you. Some units start abandoning buildings the minute the first WP round whistles in. Morale collapses faster than walls. By early 1945, every German soldier in Western Europe knows the sound, that peculiar pop high overhead, followed by the spreading white cloud. They know what comes next. And they hate it with a cold, helpless fury, because it turns their own cities into death traps and hands the streets to the Americans. In Aachen, the last pocket of resistance is down to a few hundred die-hards around the old cathedral. American guns are loaded, forward observers have the range, and the final barrage of Willie Pete is registered and ready. The first rounds are in the air when the ground starts to shake. Engines roar. From the smoke on the far side of the city, heavy tanks, Tigers of the 116th Panzer Division, come crashing through the rubble, guns blazing, SS infantry right behind them. The American line wavers. Men shout for more ammunition, for tanks, for anything. The counterattack is on, and if it breaks through, Aachen falls back into German hands. The next shell is already on its way. The first Tiger rolls out of the smoke like a ghost made of steel, its long 88 barking as it smashes an American Sherman 30 yards away. Flames leap from the turret. Another Tiger follows, then a third, machine guns ripping the street apart. Behind them come the black-uniformed SS Grenadiers of Panzer Brigade 150, screaming as they charge through the burning rubble. It's October 21, 1944, and Aachen is suddenly slipping out of American hands. Up on the second floor of a half-collapsed hotel, Lieutenant Lyle Bauch from the 394th Infantry Regiment watches the nightmare unfold. His platoon is down to 19 men and 1 working bar. They've been holding this corner for 3 days on coffee and nerve. Bauch grabs the field phone, voice steady even while his hands shake. "Fire mission Willie Pete, right damn now, on my smoke." Back with the 105s of the 229th Field Artillery, the crews have been waiting for this call. They slam base-ejecting WP rounds into the breach, 4 guns at once. The lanyards jerk, and the shells scream over the rooftops. The first one bursts dead center in the street between the Tigers. White smoke blooms like a living thing, rolling thick and low, swallowing the tanks whole. The second and third rounds walk right up the German column. Burning wedges splatter across turret roofs, seep into vision slits, ignite camouflage netting. One Tiger's commander pops his hatch, beating at flames on his jacket, and an American sniper drops him before he can duck back inside. The SS infantry hit the smoke wall and disappear. You can't see 5 feet. Men cough, stumble, crash into each other. The phosphorus eats through uniforms, raises blisters on exposed skin. Some drop their rifles and claw at their faces. Others push forward blind and run straight into the muzzles of Bouck's platoon. The bar opens up, then the M1S, then the one remaining Sherman that still has a working gun. Germans fall in heaps. Bouck's runner, Private William James, crawls along the floor with a fresh box of ammo. He's 19, from Mobile, Alabama, and hasn't seen his baby daughter yet. Between bursts he yells up the stairs, "Lieutenant, that Willie Pete just saved our bacon." Bouck doesn't answer, he's too busy pouring fire into the smoke. Across the city, the same scene plays out again and again. Every time the panzers try to mass, American forward observers call down the white rain. A single WP round lands on a King Tiger's engine deck near the cathedral. Flames shoot 10 feet high, cooking off the ready rounds inside. The turret blows sky high, and the blast wave knocks SS men flat 20 yards away. By late afternoon, the counterattack is bleeding out in the streets. The Germans lose 11 tanks and most of an SS battalion, all because they can't see, can't breathe, can't fight inside that rolling white hell. The ones who survive stagger back, faces blistered, uniforms smoking. One wounded Obersturmführer, captured near the theater, keeps repeating the same thing to his interrogator, "Your Phosphorus, it is not war. It is torture." That night, Colonel Gerhard Wilk, commanding what's left of Aachen's garrison, sits in a damp cellar lit by a single candle. His uniform is singed, his eyes red from smoke. He knows the city is finished. At 9:30 p.m. he radios Berlin one last time. Enemy phosphorus bombardment has destroyed all remaining resistance. Further sacrifice cannot alter the outcome. Then he orders the white flag raised. American soldiers move in at dawn on October 22nd. They walk past still-burning buildings, past German wounded curled on the cobblestones, past the hulks of tigers wrapped in lingering white haze. Private First Class Joe Giacomin from the 26th Infantry steps over a dead SS man whose greatcoat is still smoldering. He looks down, shakes his head, and says to nobody in particular, "Willie Pete, don't care how tough you are." Aachen falls, the first German city to raise the white flag for the U.S. Army. The cost is brutal, over 5,000 American casualties, another 5,000 German. But the road to the Rhine is open, and every German commander from here to Berlin now knows exactly what's waiting for them in the next city, and the next. Because the shells are already on the way to the railheads. Crates stenciled M110WP, bound for the Ruhr, for Cologne, for every brick and stone stronghold still standing between the U.S. Army and the heart of Germany. And the boys riding the trucks east, the ones with soot still on their faces from Aachen's fires, are starting to grin when they see those crates. They know what's coming. They know the Germans are already afraid of the next white cloud. The Rhine is behind us now. It's March 1945, and the U.S. Army is rolling deep into the Reich, city after city, factory after factory. Every town square looks the same, rubble, smoke, and the white cloud drifting low over the rooftops. Cologne falls in 3 days. Mannheim in 4. Frankfurt, Nuremberg, Stuttgart. One by one they open their doors when the first Willie Pete rounds start walking down the main street. The Germans have learned the rhythm. They hear the pop high overhead and they know the clock is ticking. Officers scream at their men to get out of the buildings, to take their chances in the open, because staying inside means dying in fire. Some units surrender the moment the smoke pots are lit on American tanks. Others fight to the end, and the end comes quick. In Cologne, on the 6th of March, a kid from Pittsburgh named Technical Sergeant Jake McNeese, the same filthy 13 paratrooper who painted his face on D-Day, watches a whole company of Volkssturm come running out of the Hohenzollern bridge control bunker with their hands up. One old man, 60 if he's a day, is crying and pointing at the white haze pouring from the windows behind him. McNeese just jerks a thumb toward the rear and says, "Keep moving, Pops. You picked the wrong day to play soldier." By the time we reach the Ruhr pocket in April, the German army is coming apart. Entire divisions throw down their weapons when the first chemical mortar platoons set up on the high ground. One American battery from the 92nd Chemical Mortar Battalion fires 1,400 WP rounds in a single afternoon outside Dusseldorf. The official after-action report is 2 lines long. Enemy resistance ceased at 1,545 hours. 4,200 prisoners taken. A German regimental commander, Colonel Ernst Mazel, signs the surrender document with hands still blistered from phosphorus burns. He looks up at the young American captain accepting his pistol and says, very quietly, "You did not defeat us with tanks or planes. You defeated us with that cursed white smoke." The boys hear that a lot in those last weeks. They don't cheer it. They're too tired, too homesick, too aware of the empty places at the mess table. But they understand it. From Brest to the Elbe, Willie Pete has been the great equalizer, the thing that let a nation of shopkeepers and farmers walk into the best defensive army the world had ever seen and kick in its teeth, block by block. On May 7, 1945, somewhere east of Karlsruhe, a lone Sherman rolls into a village that has already hung out bedsheets from every window. The tank commander, Captain Jim Burt from the 66th Armored Regiment, stands up in the turret and looks around. Not a shot fired. Not a round expended. Just silence and white flags fluttering in the spring breeze. Burt reaches down, pulls the last WP round out of the ready rack, and tosses it to his loader. "Souvenir," he says. "War's over. We won't be needing this anymore." The loader, a kid from Oregon who has fired hundreds of them, turns the heavy shell over in his hands like it's a museum piece. Then he sets it gently on the roadside next to a bunch of wilted daffodils somebody left on a burnt-out panther. And that's it. From the beaches of Normandy to the heart of Germany, American boys carried freedom on their backs and white phosphorus in their guns. They hated using it. They were proud it worked. And when the last German soldier laid down his rifle rather than face one more cloud of Willie Pete, those boys knew the job was finished. They came home quiet. Most never talked about the smoke. Their wives and kids and grandkids only heard the stories years later, usually after a couple beers on a summer porch. But if you asked the men who were there, really, Grandpa, what finally broke them? The answer was almost always the same, short and plain, the way fighting men say it. Willie Pete. They just couldn't take Willie Pete. And somewhere, in attics and footlockers across America, there are still a few of those dented green casings with the faded white band around the middle. They don't look like much now. Just old metal. But they ended a war.